great to be here on this podcast with Aidan Wilson. Hi, Aidan.
How you doing, Donald?
Very well, very well. You're over there in Belfast with Crusaders just now, are you?
Yeah, over in Belfast. Been over for a good few months now. I'm really enjoying it. So.
Oh, that's great. As we were saying earlier, it's the shortest flight in the world, isn't it?
It's handy for getting back home if I want to get home. It's just like going to Glasgow to Hamilton or something like that. So, it's handy enough.
Great. And I was thinking when I was getting prepared for it, so how long I've known you, and it must have been about since you were about 14 or so, I would have thought.
How long have you been?
I was about 8 years.
About 8 years.
Yeah.
Well, it would have been. I was 6, 7. About 7 years.
Aye.
So I must have left. Well, that's probably the 8th year because I left when I was 21.
Aye.
And obviously I was there since I was 7, so I would have caught you along the way.
Aye.
For sure.
It's good. So tell me a little bit about how you got into football. Were you always a football fan as a wee kid, or did you play other sports?
I played other sports, but my number one was always football. I had all the shirts. Like my mum's from Manchester, so I was a big Man U fan growing up, and still are today. And at that time, it was like Rooney, Ronaldo, that sort of. And I love Ronaldo. I used to get my hair dyed and stuff. The way he done it, and just growing up as a kid, I just love football. But my dad was very kind of sporty.
Yeah.
So he was golf, football. He played squash as well. So I kind of had that. I get my genes off of him. My sporting genes off of him. But I still play, obviously, football now. Still golf. I was very good at tennis when I was a kid. So I was quite a rounded man. But it was always sport.
Do you think, and here's a question, because do you think playing multi-sports when you're young, say 6, 7, 8 going up, do you think that helps when you start to focus on?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it definitely doesn't do you any harm, that's for sure. I mean, there's similarities, and I'm quite a nifty golfer now, and a lot of I've had a couple of lessons in golf, and see all the pros that I go to, they all say, imagine you're going to kick a ball.
Yeah.
And what would you do? How would you set up? How would you strike it? That sort of method. And see, now I just really, right, what would I do with a ball here?
Yeah.
With football, and that kind of leads into each other. And I always think if you do it when you're younger, then they all kind of tie in together.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think that's a great point, and I think that's a great analogy with the golf. I remember working with a golfer once, and we're working on his swing, and that's what I used. It was almost the feeling of the swing rather than anything technical, isn't it? And if you've got that in the muscles, it's it's so transferable. So,
no, 100%. It's almost like muscle memory, isn't it?
Yeah.
The way that your foot moves through the ball, that your leg swings through the ball. Try and do that with your arms. Do you know what I mean? So, no, definitely there is links in there for sure.
I didn't know you were a tennis man. I'm a great tennis. I lived in Wimbledon for years. So,
did you?
Yeah, I think it's just a great sport.
Yeah, no, I won so I'm from Helensburgh, so my local club, what age did I have been? Maybe about 11, 12. I won our local tennis competition.
Right.
You know how they do so for like golf, it would be like once a year they do the big tournament.
Yeah.
It would be very similar for that in tennis, and Helensburgh Tennis Club Championship or whatever it was called.
Yeah.
And I won that when I was a kid.
And I know that's a good standard there, because I agree with you as well in terms of transferability, because that I don't think people realise, we talk about tennis, that hand-eye and the speed of the balls going if you're playing at any sort of...
Even now, like, I've, not recently, but, you know, maybe a year or two, picked the tennis racket and that back up, and it's amazing how much, see if you don't play it, how much you kind of lose it, because it is so fast, and especially when you come up against someone good, it's how hard they hit the ball, how accurate they are. And it's, you know, it's tough. It's a tough sport.
I think, you know, looking at coming back to football, there's something there with the tennis as well, because so much of it is about anticipation, isn't it? And being a defender like you are is being able to see and, you know, the mind working, you know, to the spaces and anticipating. I think that would be quite a transferable skill. Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, in tennis, you kind of read players' body movements and where they're going to put the ball. You know, before it happens. And, you know, that's kind of, you know, if you've got that, like Davy Weir, they always say Davy Weir was great at reading the game. It wasn't the quickest, but could read what was going to happen before it happened. And I think, you know, especially with players' body movements and stuff like that, as a defender, we can see that early. You know, it stands you in good stead. Yeah, I think that's a great point. And then, so when did you put your focus on football? What age were you when you got involved with the academies? Well, I started going to, so it was the development centre at the time. It was kind of soccer school. So I first went into soccer schools, which was in Helensburgh. And I got picked up there by a guy called Paul Nash. And he then brought me into the Sunday Development Centre, which was obviously every Sunday. And from there, don't really remember too much. I just remember it happening quite quickly, me just moving into the youth setup. I remember because I was always quite tall as a boy, you know, physical, could handle myself. And I remember going in with the older age group at the youth at the time, because I think I must have been maybe 8 or 9, and you know, it was the under 11s that I went in with, so it would have been kind of 10-year-olds maybe. It was a year, it was like with Ross McCrorie and Robby and I went in there, and then I stayed. So that's when I kind of thought, you know, not that I've got a chance, because you don't really think about that when you're that age, but you think, I just want to focus on football now, because I was loving it. Like, there's nothing better than going in and into Murray Park and using the facilities and just playing football. So that was probably about there, maybe about 8, 9, 10, and then obviously they want you to sign and stuff. So that's when obviously you put your full focus into that. And who influenced you as you went through the academy? Who were the big influences in your playing and your game, I suppose, game intelligence and that? In terms of coaches? In terms of coaches. Well, obviously, like back then, it was obviously Gary Gibson, Jim McNee, Andy Kennedy, who are all still at the club now, which is great to see, because, you know, they really taught me the fundamentals of, you know, the total basics of football, like touching, passing, you know, scanning, like all like the, you know, the basic sort of things they implemented in us. And you know, you got all, you know, massive thanks to all the coaches through your years. But see, at that age, you know, that's such an important age for me. See, if you can do the basics really well, you've got a real chance. I always look at Billy Gilmore now. He does the basics so well, you know, keeps the ball, his touch is always there, you know, passes to teammates, you know, never gives the ball away. Like those sort of fundamental basics, which Billy, you know, would have been very similar to me in terms of what coaches he came up with and who taught him that. But, you know, I just think those basics when you're young stand you in such good stead for the rest of your career. I think that's a great point, Aidan, because I think, especially nowadays with the media, you know, not so much the social media and your access to everything, I think sometimes when you're younger, you can go on and try to be too fancy, too quick, rather than mastering that fundamentals, which takes discipline, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think, like looking back on, and I was thinking about this last night, I kind of got the tail end of, that sort of era with Jim Sinclair, and I kind of seen that, not like disciplined approach, but certainly that kind of, if the standards weren't there, you'd know about it.
Yeah,
as it's a wee bit different, nowadays with the coaching. There's different styles of coaching and stuff like that, and I've kind of seen best of both. And you see how both of them work, and I think, just as I go back to those basics, those are so key, especially at a young age, just to get them right. And just wee things like, just keeping the ball, make sure your touch is there, passing to it, like, it's so basic. But a lot of the kids now, want to do rainbow flicks and want to do flip flaps and want to, I just think a good player for me is someone who can do all the basics really well. And yeah, you do need players in your team who can produce a bit of magic. And certainly there is a place for that. But I think that person who can do the basics, and really, trust, you end up trusting them, don't you? Because the players that, maybe have got that wee bit of flair about them, if you want to call it that. The players who do the basics tend to be the ones who play every week and the manager can trust. So I think it is so important.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. But that the manager and the coaches can trust, and also when the fundamentals are really good, isn't it? You can do it under pressure, which is the next step up, isn't it? That can that fundamentals hold up under pressure?
Yeah, no, I think obviously going up the levels, and obviously imagine to make my debut for Rangers, it is, there was nothing, on that night against Aberdeen that, I thought, wow, that's something I've never seen before. It was just the pace and the tempo and how quickly, the game was moving. And, that's, again, like, that's not someone that's, doing something that's amazingly with flair, like doing something, look at that bit of skill or something like that. It is how well they do the basics and how quick they do the basics. Which sometimes, that next level, to get to that next level, you need to be able to do things quicker, sharper, and it's always kind of the basics.
That's a great point. And what was it like, you're mentioning your debut there against Aberdeen, what was it like to make your debut? How did that feel for Rangers?
Yeah, it is amazing. Like, it's good to look back and just, think about, like, try and like relive the memory. Like even going to like the start of that day where I wasn't sure whether I was going to play or not, because at the time Clint Hill was there. And Clint had, I think he pulled his calf in training a couple of days before, so he was doing a fitness test that day. So I was driving into Ibrox, and these are the wee things that you just obviously drive through the big blue gates into the stadium, and then you give your car. Obviously the security, they take it away for you, and it's just obviously you walk into the change room, and that's when I always remember that wee bit where, so Pedro at the time used to do the faces. So it was never your name, it was always like your faces. And I just remember walking in and having a look at the team sheet, and it was my face on the starting 11, and that's kind of always stuck with me. And then going up the stair for pre-match, just the whole thing, it was amazing. And then obviously getting onto the game, I always remember having goosebumps walking out to Simply the Best. That was always, that's kind of always stuck with me. And then see when it gets down to the football, like I was thinking to myself at the time, kind of like what we were talking about, just the first thing you do, whether it's, a tackle, a header, a pass, your first touch, whatever, just make sure I do it well. And I think it was a header. And, I can't really remember too much about the game. It's kind of a blur, but I think it was a header. But just an amazing experience, and something that, I'm so glad that, I managed to get the opportunity to play for Rangers, because it's something I can always say I've done. And, the experience of playing there at Ibrox in front of 50,000 will always stick with me.
And I think, it is amazing, isn't it? Because if you're looking at it in terms of the numbers of boys that actually make it to that point, isn't it? That's something you can always think that I did that. I was there, I played, I made it through there. Was there, if you go back to when you were at the academy there, was there an age where you thought, well, you know what, where you found yourself thinking, I've got a chance? Or was it just, just carried on doing what you had to do?
I think it's like football's so stop-start, Donald. You can never be too high when everything's going well, and you can't get too low when things aren't maybe going so well. And I always kind of look back at that season I made my debut, and I wasn't playing for the reserves, never mind the first team. See, the start of that year, I was on the bench for the reserves, and I don't know why, but we played Falkirk away at Falkirk Stadium, and I don't know, it just sticks in my head as a game where I sat on the bench and I never got on. I think it may have been Graham Murray's first game in charge, and I was just kind of thinking, like, what am I going to do here? I need to be playing, and I managed to get in the team maybe a couple of games later, and then from there I just progressed. But all kind of from my younger days at Rangers, coming up to it, I was always playing, and I was always one that, I played up in age until 15s. So I was always one of the better players in my age group. I was always playing up a year. So all the way through, like, you see at that age, you don't really think about first team. It's like too far away. You just think about like enjoying your football and just doing, like, see, as a kid I was always a winner. I always wanted to win. Every time you put on the shirt, you're there to win, regardless what age you are, regardless who you're playing. But I remember, like, see the old firms back then, it was right good standards of players, and it was, I used to fly into tackles and stuff as well, even as like a 14, 13, 15. Like, I loved that. Like, she's a kid, like, old, like, you used to get buzzing for the old firm. And I just think, like, that was very much installed in me as a kid, was to win. And going back to those coaches, again, that's one of the basics of football. You go out on a field to win. And that was installed in us as kids as well. So,
how important, Aidan, do you think it is? You spoke about your dad earlier being, a right sportsman, sporty into different sports as well. How important is it, do you think, as a young footballer coming through? And it is intense, isn't it? It being there as the intensity of pro setup. How important is it to have a right supportive family around you that understand what's going on, and how you mentioned it as the first team, how things can change in the blink of an eye? How important it is for the family to have a family support?
No, 100%. Like, your family behind are the ones who, when it's not going so well, probably get the brunt of it. Whatever, like, you go home and you're moaning to your mum and dad that you're not playing, or and they've got to say, because you are still obviously young, and they've got to say the right thing to you at the time. And I was lucky enough that my family were very supportive, and what I'd done in that definitely stood me in good stead as I got a bit older. And I think the age that I'm at just now, like, I'll just turn 22, and I feel like my experience of everything that's happened in my career so far is, like, stood me in, such good stead for, I feel like an experience. I know I'm only young, but I feel like an experienced player.
Yeah.
I've seen that. I've seen the absolute highs of football, and I've obviously seen the lows as well. And that's such a big factor. And my parents have been, since I was young. My parents are here now. They were there in the middle. They were there when I was playing in front of 50,000. They were there when I was playing in front of 50 at Edinburgh City or something like that. Do you know what I mean? So, and they've always supported me, and always done their best for me. And
I think it's another great point, Aidan, because for people looking in at football, I think, and you'll have heard it, I get it the whole time, is people always just see the very top of the triangle, the pinnacle. I think everyone's heard it as much as Ronaldo, or thinking that it's easy, and of course that's just a 0.0001% of everyone that's trying to make it in the game, isn't it?
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, you see, like, there's obviously, like, football has got top earners, and obviously Ronaldo's right up there, and a lot of the Premier League players are earning very good money as well. But you go away from, especially kind of up in Scotland, you go away from the Premier League in Scotland, and it's not, it's definitely not anywhere near the Premier League wages. So, like, a lot of these guys they're just grafters. They just graft their way, and it isn't pretty. But that's just kind of the way it is. And it was kind of good to see, it's a bit like going on loan from Rangers. You're still a Rangers player, but you get to see kind of what the guys are going through at part-time level and at full-time level at other clubs. So as well, like, that's good for me to see. You learn a lot from that.
So, and I think that's again an important point, because as growing up, you would have been round at Auchenhowie the whole time, and the facilities amazing, best coaches, all the support around you. What was it like to come away from there when you were going on loan and going to the other grounds and seeing the facilities? Or that, was it a shock, or was it just what you expected?
Like, I think, I wasn't shocked. I was actually quite lucky where, my loan Edinburgh City, we trained at the Orium, which is obviously another good facility. Dumbarton trained at a decent wee ground. And Forfar, we trained at the stadium. So, it wasn't too bad in terms of, it's like a massive shock. It's kind of what I expected it to be like. But, it obviously isn't anything compared to walking in at Auchenhowie every day.
But I think it's a great point, again, you make there, because professionalism and coaches and players getting the best out of themselves isn't always about having the best equipment or fancy facilities, is it? It's the approach to what you're doing.
Yeah, I think it's like your mindset going into different challenges. I always try and have the same mentality if I was training at Rangers or whether I was training at Dumbarton or Edinburgh City. Like, you've just got to have that same mentality of getting the best out of a session or a coach or whatever it is, just getting the best out of that, and trying to improve yourself. I think that's key to know wherever you are, whatever you're doing, is each day is trying to improve yourself and make yourself a better person.
I think that's a great philosophy, isn't it? Every day you taking the responsibility to improve yourself, not just on the park, but what you're doing off the park, and to be a better person. That is superb. What would be, we spoke about the fundamentals of the game that you learned at Rangers. What was anything else you would take from coming right the way through the ranks at the Rangers youth setup or the pro setup? What would be anything else you would take from that journey you think is really important to you?
I always speak about winning, and I spoke about a wee bit about it before, and that was a big thing. Like, being at Rangers, every time you put on that shirt, you'd expect it to win. And it's not always going to happen. But you know, that winning mentality, you know, that was a big thing for me. In terms of like, we always got taught the basics, as I said before. But I think like the one thing that has stuck with me is that winning mentality.
Yeah.
You know, that mentality not to get beat wherever you are.
Yeah.
And as I said before, like two styles of coaching. Maybe the first one being a bit more disciplined and the kind of newer style of coaching. You know, I'm lucky that, you know, I've seen the two of them, because you can pick apart the two of them, and you know, especially when you know, I'm getting a wee bit older, and I can kind of put myself in positions that maybe other players were in, and I can help them. And you know, it is, as I say, good to take wee bits and bobs from the two styles of coaching. So yeah.
And what kind of coaching do you think, if you look at that now, because you know, I think now you're, as you said there, you can reflect back. What kind of coach or what style of coaching gets the best out of you?
It's a good question. Like, see, this is probably one of the things that I don't really like. I couldn't put my finger on it.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, as I say, I had the you know, the two styles of coaching. I think I can react well to either of them. Like, I can react well to like an arm around the shoulder, which is, you know, and lots of kind of tactical information.
Yeah.
But I can also react well to taking a blast.
Yeah.
You know, because like I think you react, like I think that would be arm around the shoulder, you know, kind of tactical information, which is kind of more nowadays what, you know, what the kids have been taught. You know, you can react to that in a positive way, and you know, you're learning. Whereas, see, sometimes you do just need a jag. Maybe, you know, you're not feeling as good, or maybe you're not doing things quick enough, and that wee jag, you know, wakes you up almost. So
yeah.
I do think that, you know, there's place for them in, you know, in football. I don't think you can lose that wee jag that you have with someone, that kind of older style of, you know, coaching. But the new coaching, there definitely is a place for it to come in.
You would, because I was thinking,
lose that.
I agree totally, Aidan. And you know, you would have seen it because of the age you are and your journey. Did you notice the increase in tactical information players were expected to take on? You know, the amount.
No, 100%. As I obviously got maybe like 17, 18, 19, 20, the tactical information, and especially, you know, at Rangers, you know, a lot of the, like, I wouldn't say we never worked on, you know, like kind of playing out for the back, and where players should be at certain points, where, you know, if I've got the ball, what options I should have, and formations, and you know, all the tactical side of the game. I wouldn't say that we never got taught that as a kid, but it certainly increased when I got older. And you know, 17, 18, 19, 20, it certainly went up. And there's a lot of kind of more, you know, like the auditorium and stuff got built at Barry Park, and you were able to look back on games and, you know, learn from them, and you know, a lot of individual sessions, working on yourself, working on the team. So it definitely went up, and a lot more information you had to grasp with both hands.
And I suppose this is the final question on your journey through the youth there, and I think it's an important one for me actually to ask you for young players. With that increase in information that you're expected to take on, you know, in game management and shape and scenarios, what would be your advice to a young player at, you know, 17, 18, even 16, how to sift through the information for themselves and pick up what's the most important? How did you kind of think, oh, that's important for me? How did you work that out?
I think with all the tactical information, never lose the fundamentals.
Yeah.
Because I think you can get caught up sometimes on like loads of tactical information and it all going through your head. But when you get onto that football pitch, don't forget the fundamentals you learned as a kid. Because when they were 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, they would get taught the basics, as I keep saying.
Yeah.
It's so important they don't forget them. And that they take some of the, a lot of the important tactical information on board and try and implement it. But it doesn't come like the click of fingers. For sure. It does take time for you to learn and grow as a player, and especially at that age, you're physically growing as well. So I definitely do not forget the fundamentals.
Brilliant. So tell us a little bit about how you're enjoying Crusaders now, and your experience over in Northern Ireland with the team, and also I think you've started your own coaching business, which is superb.
Yeah. So obviously, when I was being 3/4 pro, there was that wee gap for me to start, thinking about not like another path, but maybe something I'd do after football, because obviously football right now is obviously still my number one, and my full focus goes into football. But I've always kind of been one for, right, what am I going to do after? And I've got a wee plan after football, but what I want to do just now is set up my own wee coaching business to try and, not that I feel like the kind of fundamentals are going out of football, but I'd like to give my knowledge and a bit back and kind of one-to-one coaching, which I'm going to be starting over here. Just so like I can give a bit back and I can kind of bring my experience of being a young kid at Rangers, getting all the way through to the first team, and then installing some of the things that I learned as a kid into these players. So that's something that I'm going to be starting, obviously due to COVID and stuff, can't do it just now, but hopefully around the middle of February.
I think
I'm going to be starting it.
I think that's brilliant, Aidan, for a few different reasons as well, which I'll say, like what you're saying about giving something back and passing on your kind of knowledge. I've been involved in coach education for a lot of years, and I see players getting involved in it now far earlier than even say 5 years ago. So I think you're right on the money for that. But the other thing I think that you can definitely bring to the table in your coaching business is you're still in the game and you're still young. You're a young player, so you know what it feels like to be 14, 15, 16. And I think that's a bit of gold dust, really.
Yeah, I think as well I'm still learning. So the more I get older, the more football I play. I always hear coaches say that they're still learning at 30, 31, 32, 33, and that's like that would be the exact same for me. But obviously, I kind of got that, like, see, when I was a wee bit younger, I was like, nah, I don't really want to get into coaching. But see, as you get a wee bit older, I could see myself maybe stepping into as I get, finish my time off as a footballer, I'd like to go into the coaching role. It's something I think I'd be good at. And that maybe that starts now with the wee coaching business I'm doing now. Just gets me that experience, gets me that wee bit of, as well, like it kind of interacts me with Belfast, because obviously Glasgow boy, it gets me to know different people, and I like that. I like, obviously I'll be giving back, and I'll be giving my all to the boys that I take on, and I think as well, I've got to say a big thanks to Crusaders as well, because ever since I came over, and they've always looked after me. They've been brilliant in what they've done for me so far, and you got to say a big thanks to them. So
That's superb, because you know, listening to you speak, you're obviously feeling very welcome there and wanting to be part of the community. So that is superb. And you know, your coaching, you know, is not something on football. I think that's integral part of who you are as well, and to pass on things. So just to finish with there, if anyone's wanting to kind of find out more about your, you know, getting coaching for you or your coaching business, how would they go about that? Have you got a website, or can they contact you?
So I've got an Instagram. It's on my main Instagram, which is _ Aidan Wilson 1, and then there's a wee link in there to my Instagram page.
Brilliant.
The page is called A4 Coaching, and then there's a wee link in my bio to my Facebook page, which is obviously, if you've not got Instagram or what have you, A4 Coaching.
Great. I'll put the links up in the page later on for that when we put it up, so people can get in touch with you quite easily. So so it's been brilliant to catch up with you and speak with you again, Aidan. So thanks for your time.
Yeah, cheers, Donald. Cheers.
Have a good one.